On a freezing Christmas Eve in Manhattan, billionaire James Carter was walking through the crowded street with his son when Liam suddenly pulled his arm. Just a few steps away, a young homeless woman sat curled on a frozen bench, holding a baby whose face was turning blue. James tried to keep moving, but Liam gripped his hand and whispered, "Dad, the baby's freezing." That single whisper made James turn back. He walked toward the bench, knelt in the snow, and wrapped his son's red scarf around the baby to keep him warm, never sensing that this simple gesture would tie their lives together. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The cold hit different on Christmas Eve in New York City. Not the kind of cold you complain about, the kind that gets into your bones and stays there. James Carter pulled his coat tighter and glanced down at his son. Liam's small hand gripped his with that fierce determination only 4-year-olds possess, like he was afraid his dad might disappear if he let go. "Dad, look at all the lights!" Liam's breath came out in little puffs of fog as he pointed at the storefront displays. James forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy. Pretty amazing, right?" But he wasn't looking at the lights. His phone buzzed for the third time in 5 minutes. Marcus from the office again. James declined the call without reading the message. Not tonight. Tonight was supposed to be about Liam, about trying to feel something other than the hollow ache that had lived in his chest for 2 years. 2 years since Sarah died. 2 years since he'd held her hand in that hospital room and watched the life drain from her eyes. She'd made him promise something in those final moments, and the memory of it hit him now like a physical weight. "Take care of our boy," she'd whispered. "Teach him to be kind, to see people, really see them." He'd promised. Of course he'd promised, but lately James wondered if he was keeping that promise or just going through the motions. They walked past a Starbucks where a barista was handing out candy canes to kids, past a couple arguing about which subway line to take, past a street performer playing a half-frozen saxophone. The city buzzed with that manic pre-Christmas energy, everyone rushing somewhere, seeing no one. Then Liam stopped, just stopped dead in the middle of the sidewalk, nearly yanking James's arm out of its socket. "Liam, come on, we need to—" "Dad!" Liam's voice came out quiet, serious in a way that made James's stomach tighten. "Dad, look!" James followed his son's gaze to the bus stop shelter across the street. At first, he almost didn't see her. His brain tried to categorize what he was looking at as just another piece of the city's background noise, something you walk past, something that isn't your problem. But Liam saw her, really saw her. A young woman sat hunched on the stone bench, her thin coat doing absolutely nothing against the wind that whipped down the avenue. She couldn't have been more than 25, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. In her arms, wrapped in a blanket that looked like it had been pulled from a dumpster, was a baby. The baby wasn't crying. That was the thing that made James's chest constrict. The baby was too still, too quiet, making those little jerky movements that newborns make when they're cold, really cold. "She needs help," Liam said, not as a question, but as a simple statement of fact. James felt his jaw clench. He knew this situation. Every New Yorker knew this situation. You walk past because you can't help everyone, because getting involved means complications, because what? Because you're too busy, too important, too scared? His phone buzzed again. He ignored it. "Liam, listen," James started, already crafting the explanation in his head, the one about how they couldn't help everyone, about how the city has shelters and programs, about how it's complicated. But Liam wasn't listening. His son was staring at that baby with an intensity that made something crack in James's carefully constructed wall. "Dad, the baby's cold." Liam's voice trembled slightly. "Really cold." And just like that, James was back in that hospital room, Sarah's hand in his, getting colder and colder no matter how hard he held on, the way her fingers had gone from warm to cool to cold, and how he'd kept holding them anyway, as if his warmth could somehow bring her back. "Teach him to be kind," Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. "To see people." James looked at his son, then back at the woman and her baby. The woman's eyes were closed, her head tilted back against the glass of the bus shelter. She looked exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness, the kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting a battle you know you can't win. The baby made a small sound, barely audible over the traffic. That sound did it. James felt something shift in his chest, like a door he'd been holding closed, suddenly swinging open. He reached up and unwound the red scarf from around Liam's neck. "Hey, we're gonna need this back," he said quietly, meeting his son's eyes. "But first, we're gonna let someone else borrow it, okay?" Liam nodded, his face serious and solemn in a way that made him look older than 4. James took a breath and stepped off the curb. The walk across the street felt longer than it should have. Each step was a decision, a commitment. He could feel his heart pounding, not from fear exactly, but from the knowledge that what happened in the next few minutes would matter, really matter. As they approached the bench, James could see the woman more clearly. Her clothes were worn but clean, or as clean as they could be, given the circumstances. Her shoes had holes in them. The blanket wrapped around the baby was actually a beach towel, thin and threadbare. James knelt down beside the bench, moving slowly so as not to startle her. Up close, he could see the baby's lips had a bluish tint. The kid was maybe 3 months old, and even through the towel, James could see how the tiny body was shaking. "Excuse me," he said softly. The woman's eyes snapped open, and in that instant, James saw pure terror flash across her face. Her arms tightened around the baby, her whole body tensing like she was preparing to run or fight. "It's okay," James said quickly, holding up his hands. We're not gonna hurt you." The woman stared at him, her breathing rapid and shallow. Her eyes darted from James to Liam and back again, calculating, assessing the threat level. "My son noticed you were cold," James continued, keeping his voice level and calm. "We thought maybe." He held up the red scarf, and for a long moment nobody moved. The woman's eyes fixed on the scarf, then on Liam, who stood slightly behind his father, watching with that intense, worried expression. "I don't want your charity," the woman said, and her voice surprised James. It was stronger than he expected, with an edge to it that spoke of pride, not quite broken. "We're fine." "I can see that," James lied smoothly. "But it's Christmas Eve, and my son would really feel better if your baby had this. Would that be okay?" It was a risk putting it on Liam, but something told James that appealing to this woman's maternal instincts might work where pity wouldn't. The woman looked at Liam again, really looked at him. Then her gaze dropped to the baby in her arms, and James saw her face change, saw the exact moment when her pride lost the battle with her fear. The baby's lips were definitely blue now. The tiny body wasn't shaking anymore, and that was worse. Much worse. "Okay," she whispered, and the word seemed to cost her everything. James moved slowly, telegraphing his intentions as he reached forward and gently tucked the scarf around the baby. His fingers brushed against the infant's skin and his heart clenched. The baby was ice cold. "How long have you been out here?" he asked, trying to keep the urgency out of his voice. "That's none of your business." But the woman's defiance was weakening. She looked down at her baby, and James saw her eyes fill with tears she refused to let fall. "You're right," James said. "It's not. But here's what is my business. That baby needs to be somewhere warm. Now. Not in an hour. Not after we debate about it. Now." "I don't have anywhere." "I know a place," James interrupted. He stood up, then held out his hand to her. "Will you let me help you? Please?" The woman stared at his outstretched hand like it was a trap, like accepting it would cost her something she couldn't afford to lose. "My name's James," he said quietly. "This is Liam. What's yours?" "Claire," she said after a long pause. "And this is Noah." "Nice to meet you, Claire." James kept his hand extended, steady and patient. "Now, will you please let us help you and Noah get somewhere warm?" He watched her internal struggle play out across her face. Pride versus love. Independence versus survival. The fierce need to protect her dignity, warring with the equally fierce need to protect her child. Noah made another small sound, barely a whimper. That decided it. Claire's hand, cold and trembling, reached up and grasped James's. The Range Rover's heated seats kicked in almost immediately, and James watched in his rearview mirror as Claire's shoulders began to shake. Not from cold, she was crying, silently. Her face turned toward the window so Noah wouldn't see. Liam sat in his car seat next to her, stealing glances at the baby wrapped in his red scarf. The kid's face was serious, like he understood the gravity of what was happening, even if he couldn't put it into words. "Where are we going?" Claire's voice came out hoarse. "Somewhere safe," James said, navigating through the Christmas Eve traffic. "Somewhere warm." "A shelter?" There was resignation in her tone, like she'd been to plenty of those and knew exactly what to expect. Not exactly. James pulled out his phone and dialed. It rang twice before Margaret Hill's crisp voice answered. Mr. Carter, Merry Christmas Eve. Margaret, I need the Aspen Suite prepared, full amenities. And get a crib set up. We're going to need one for an infant, about 3 months old. There was a pause. Margaret Hill had been with the Carter family for 30 years. She'd worked for James's father before James took over the company. Very little surprised her anymore. How soon will you be arriving? 20 minutes. Consider it done. No questions, no judgment. That was Margaret. James ended the call and caught Claire's eyes in the mirror. We're going to a hotel I own, the Archer, on 5th Avenue. You and Noah are going to stay in one of the suites. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to pay. Claire's jaw tightened. I don't need your pity. Good, because I'm not offering pity. James took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Look, Claire, I don't know your situation and you don't have to tell me, but what I do know is that your son is in danger right now. Not maybe, not possibly, right now. His lips are blue. He's not crying anymore. Do you know what that means? Claire's arms tightened around Noah, her eyes wide with fear. It means he's shutting down, James continued, gentler now. His body's trying to conserve energy. That's not something you fix by toughing it out on a bench for another night. So what do you want from me? Claire's voice cracked. What's this gonna cost me? The question hit James harder than it should have. What kind of world had this woman lived in, where help always came with a price tag? Nothing, he said firmly. It's gonna cost you nothing. You're going to stay in that suite for as long as you need. You're going to get warm. Noah's gonna get warm. And tomorrow, if you want to leave, you can leave. No strings, no debt, no obligation. People don't do that. I just did. They drove in silence for a few minutes. James could feel Claire's eyes on the back of his head, still calculating, still waiting for the catch. Why? She finally asked. James glanced at Liam, who was drawing patterns on the fogged window with his finger. Because my son saw you, really saw you, and maybe... He paused, searching for the right words. Maybe we all need to be seen sometimes. The Archer rose up before them, all glass and steel and warm light spilling onto 5th Avenue. The doorman snapped to attention as James pulled up to the curb. Mr. Carter, welcome back. The doorman, Roberts, James remembered, opened the door with practiced efficiency. Then he saw Claire and Noah, and to his credit, his professional smile didn't falter for even a second. Good evening, miss. Welcome to the Archer. Claire climbed out of the car like she was stepping onto foreign soil. Her eyes swept across the marble entrance, the doorman in his crisp uniform, the warm light flooding from the lobby. James watched her throat work as she swallowed hard. I can't go in there, she whispered. Look at me. James came around the car and stood beside her. You look like someone who needs help. That's all anyone in there is going to see, because that's all I'm going to let them see, okay? He held out his hand again, the same way he had at the bench, steady, patient, waiting. This time, Claire took it faster. The lobby of the Archer was everything James had designed it to be. Elegant without being cold, luxurious without being intimidating. At least that's what the architecture magazines had said. But watching Claire walk through those doors, he wondered if any amount of good design could bridge the gap between her world and this one. She clutched Noah tighter, her eyes darting around like she expected security to throw her out at any moment. James, the concierge, David Chen, looked up from his desk with a professional smile that warmed when he saw Liam. And young Mr. Carter, out late tonight, I see. David, this is Claire and Noah. They're going to be staying with us for a while. The Aspen Suite, is Margaret getting it ready? Already done, sir. I'll have someone bring up extra blankets and... David's eyes flicked to Noah, and his expression shifted almost imperceptibly. I'll make sure the suite's temperature is set properly. May I offer to have some warm milk sent up? And perhaps soup? That would be perfect. Thank you. As they walked toward the elevators, Claire leaned close to James. They're staring. They're not, James said, though he knew some of the guests in the lobby were casting curious glances their way. And even if they were, so what? You're a guest here. You have just as much right to be here as anyone else. The elevator doors closed, sealing them in reflective gold-paneled silence. Claire's reflection stared back at her from every angle, hollow-eyed, thin, holding a baby wrapped in a beach towel and a little boy's red scarf. "I don't belong here," she said quietly. "Neither did I once," James replied. "My father built this hotel from nothing. Started as a carpenter, worked his way up to contractor, then developer. When I was Liam's age, we lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. My mom worked 3 jobs. I used to fall asleep to the sound of her crying at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how to pay the electric bill." Claire looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "You're lying." "I'm not. My father used to tell me that money doesn't change who you are. It just reveals who you've always been. The question is whether you use it to build walls or bridges." He glanced down at Liam. "Oi, die." Osehan was barely staying awake. "I'm trying to teach my son to build bridges." The elevator chimed softly as they reached the top floor. The Aspen suite was, well, it was a lot. James saw it through Claire's eyes as the doors opened. The sprawling living area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The fireplace already crackling. The crib set up near the bedroom door with fresh linens and a mobile of soft stuffed stars. Claire stopped in the doorway like she'd hit an invisible wall. "I can't," she breathed. "This is too much. This is..." Noah started to fuss, the first real sound he'd made since they'd gotten in the car. The baby's cry was weak, tired, but it cut through Claire's paralysis like a knife. "The bedroom's through there," James said gently. "Bathroom's attached. There's a tub if you want to warm up slowly. Margaret stocked it with everything you might need." Claire moved like a sleepwalker, drawn by her son's needs more than any conscious decision. She laid Noah on the king-sized bed and started unwrapping him from the towel and scarf. In the warm light of the suite, James could see how bad it really was. The baby's skin was mottled, his breathing shallow. "He needs a hospital," James said. "No!" Claire's response was immediate and sharp. "No hospitals." "Claire, I said no!" She grabbed Noah, holding him against her chest. "They'll take him. They'll say I'm unfit, and they'll take him away from me." James held up his hands. "Okay, no hospital, but let's at least get him warm. Get some food in him, then we can talk about what comes next." He watched the tension in her shoulders, the way she was preparing to bolt, despite having nowhere to go. "I lost someone too," he said quietly. "My wife, Sarah, 2 years ago." Claire's eyes snapped to his. "She died giving birth to our second child. Complications. They tried everything, but..." He swallowed hard. "The baby didn't make it either. A little girl. We were going to name her Emma." "I'm sorry," Claire whispered, and he could see she meant it. "Me too. Every single day, I'm sorry." James moved toward the door. "But Sarah made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to teach Liam to be kind, to see people, to help when he can." He paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Tonight, my son saw you. And if I walked away, if I let him learn that seeing someone's pain means nothing unless it's convenient, then I'd be breaking my promise to her. So this is for her? For your son?" "No," James said honestly. "This is for you and for Noah, because you both deserve to be warm and safe and fed, regardless of how you ended up on that bench." He opened the door and stepped into the hallway. "Margaret will check on you in the morning. Room service menu is on the desk. Order whatever you want, whenever you want it. The phone's programmed. Just hit 0 if you need anything." "James?" He turned back. Claire stood in the doorway, Noah still clutched to her chest. In the warm light of the suite, with her defenses finally crumbling, she looked impossibly young and unbearably tired. "Why do you have a crib just ready to go?" The question hit him in the solar plexus. James looked at Liam, who was half asleep on his feet, then back at Claire. This was going to be Sarah's suite. After Emma was born, this was where we were going to stay for the first few weeks, close to the hospital, close to my office. The crib. He cleared his throat. "The crib was ordered 2 years ago. I never sent it back." Understanding dawned in Claire's eyes, followed by something that looked like pain. "Get some rest," James said softly. "Tomorrow's going to be better. I promise." He took Liam's hand and headed for the elevator, leaving Claire silhouetted in the doorway of a room that was supposed to hold all his hopes and dreams, now holding someone else's desperate need instead. In the elevator, Liam leaned against his father's leg. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy." "Did we do good?" James thought about Sarah's hand going cold in his, about promises made and kept, about his son's eyes seeing what so many adults had trained themselves to ignore. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We did real good." Claire stood in the doorway long after James and Liam disappeared into the elevator. The click of the closing doors echoed down the hallway, and suddenly she was alone in a silence so complete it felt like pressure against her eardrums. Noah whimpered against her chest and she jolted back to awareness. "Okay, baby," she whispered, moving back into the suite. "Okay, we're okay now." But her hands were shaking as she laid Noah on the bed. As she pulled away the red scarf and the beach towel, she could see how the warmth of the room was already affecting him. His skin was still too pale, but the bluish tint was fading. His breathing was evening out. She needed to change him, feed him. But first, the bathroom stopped her cold. It was bigger than the last 3 places she'd slept combined. Marble everywhere, heated floors, a rainfall shower that looked like something from a magazine. And the tub. God, the tub was huge, already filling with steaming water because apparently this place had preset temperatures or some other rich people magic she didn't understand. Claire caught sight of herself in the mirror and flinched. The woman staring back at her was a stranger, hollow-eyed, gaunt, with that particular kind of exhaustion that settled into your bones and made a home there. Her hair hung in matted clumps. There was a bruise on her cheekbone from where she'd been shoved by that security guard 3 nights ago when she'd tried to sleep in a subway station. She looked exactly like what she was. A woman who'd given up on everything except keeping her baby alive. The sob came out of nowhere, surprising her with its violence. Claire clamped her hand over her mouth, stumbling back from her reflection. She couldn't break down. Not now. Not when Noah needed her. But the warmth of the room, the safety of locked doors, the simple fact that for the first time in months, nobody was telling her to move along or get out, it all hit her at once. She sank to the bathroom floor, her back against the tub, and let herself cry for exactly 1 minute. She counted the seconds in her head, giving herself that much and no more. 60 seconds to fall apart. Then she had to pull it together. At 58, she forced herself to breathe. At 60, she stood up. Noah first. Always Noah first. She went back to the bedroom and changed him with the supplies Margaret had somehow procured. Actual newborn diapers, not the 2 big ones she'd been making work. Clean clothes that fit. A warm bottle waiting in a warmer she hadn't even noticed when they first came in. As Noah drank, his eyes drifted closed. The bottle dropped from his mouth when he fell asleep, milk still on his lips, and Claire felt something in her chest crack open. He looked peaceful. For the first time in so long, her baby looked peaceful. She tucked him into the crib that was supposed to be for a little girl named Emma, and stood there watching him breathe, in and out, steady and strong. The bathroom called to her like a siren song. Claire hadn't had a real shower in 2 weeks. The last one had been at a shelter in Brooklyn, the water running cold after 3 minutes, with 5 other women waiting outside the stall and banging on the door to hurry up. She stripped off her clothes, the layers that smelled like the street, like desperation, like failure, and left them in a heap on the floor. She'd deal with them later, or maybe she'd burn them. Maybe she'd never put them on again. The thought terrified her even as it tantalized her. The shower spray hit her like absolution. Claire stood under the hot water and felt it strip away days of grime, of cold, of fear. It ran brown and gray at her feet, circling the drain, taking pieces of the nightmare with it. She shampooed her hair 3 times, used the conditioner even though it felt wasteful, scrubbed her skin until it was pink and tender and clean. And then, because the tub was still full and inviting, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt anything but survival mode adrenaline, she stepped into it. The heat was almost painful at first. Her body, so used to being cold, didn't know how to process warmth, but she sank in anyway, submerging herself up to her chin, and felt her muscles finally begin to unknot. That's when the memories hit. She'd been good once. Actually good at something. Rhode Island School of Design, full scholarship, professors telling her she had a real eye for color and composition. Her father had called it frivolous, said art wasn't a real career, but her mother had secretly slipped her money for supplies. Then she'd met Derek. God, Derek. With his easy smile and his promises, he'd seemed so different from her uptight, judgmental family. Free, creative. He'd understood her in a way nobody else did, until she got pregnant. Then he was gone so fast it was like he'd never existed at all. Blocked her on everything. His friends said they'd never heard of her. 3 years together, and he'd erased her like chalk off a sidewalk. Her family had been worse. "You've brought shame on this house," her father had said, standing in the doorway of her childhood home, physically blocking her from entering. Your mother and I didn't raise you to behave like this. Dad, please. Don't call me that. Not anymore. You made your choice. Now live with it. The door had closed in her face, just like that. 19 years of being their daughter, gone because she'd made one mistake. The shelter system had been a maze she couldn't navigate. Too many forms, too many requirements she couldn't meet. No permanent address, no job history, no family support. The bed at the maternity home ran out 3 weeks after Noah was born. After that, it was just her and Noah in whatever corner they could find that security guards hadn't claimed yet. Claire slid lower in the water until her ears submerged and the world went muffled and distant. She could hear her heartbeat, steady and rhythmic. She could hear the water lapping against the sides of the tub. For just a moment, she let herself imagine what it would be like if this was real, if this was her life, if she could wake up every morning in a warm bed with clean sheets, if Noah could grow up safe and fed and loved. But that fantasy was dangerous. This wasn't her life. This was borrowed. Tomorrow, or the next day, or whenever James Carter decided he'd done his good deed for the year, she'd be back on that bench. And it would be even harder because she'd know what she was missing. The water was cooling when she finally climbed out. She dried off with towels so soft they felt like clouds, wrapped herself in the plush robe hanging on the door, and padded back into the bedroom. Noah was still sleeping peacefully in the crib. Claire stood over him, watching the rise and fall of his tiny chest, and felt the full weight of her situation crash down on her. She loved him so much, it hurt. This perfect, innocent little human who'd done nothing to deserve the life she could give him. He deserved stability, safety, a future. He deserved everything she couldn't provide. The thought that maybe he'd be better off with someone else tried to creep in, but she shoved it away violently. No, nobody would love him the way she did. Nobody would fight for him the way she would. They just had to make it through tonight, and tomorrow, and the day after that. One day at a time. That's all she could do. Claire climbed into the massive bed, every muscle in her body screaming with exhaustion. The sheets were crisp and clean. The pillows were perfect. The blanket was warm without being heavy. She tried to stay awake, to keep watch, to maintain the vigilance that had kept them alive this long. But her body had other ideas. 2 months of sleeping with one eye open, of jerking awake at every sound, of never fully resting, it all caught up with her at once. The last thing she remembered before sleep dragged her under was Noah's peaceful breathing and the distant sound of the city below, muffled by glass and warmth and walls that kept the world safely outside. For one night, just one night, Claire Miller let herself feel safe. Claire woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the sound of Noah cooing softly in his crib. For 3 full seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The bench, James, the hotel, the impossible kindness of strangers. She bolted upright, her heart racing. What time was it? Had they overstayed their welcome? Was someone coming to kick them out? Her clothes from yesterday sat in a neat pile on the chair by the window. Someone had been in the room while she slept. The realization made her stomach turn. She'd been so exhausted she hadn't heard them enter, hadn't protected Noah. She scrambled to the crib. He looked up at her with clear, bright eyes, his face pink and healthy. When he saw her, his mouth curved into that gummy smile that made her heart explode every single time. "Hey, baby," she whispered, scooping him up. "Hey, my sweet boy. You feel so much better, don't you?" A knock at the door made her freeze. "Miss Miller?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "My name is Margaret Hill. May I come in?" Claire's grip on Noah tightened. "Just a minute." She looked around frantically. Her clothes were still dirty despite someone's attempt to fold them neatly. The robe would have to do. She cinched it tighter and walked to the door, holding Noah like a shield. Margaret Hill stood in the hallway with the kind of posture that suggested she'd never slouched a day in her life. She was somewhere in her 60s, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, her silver hair pulled into an elegant bun. Everything about her screamed old money, high standards, and zero tolerance for nonsense. Her eyes swept over Claire in one efficient glance, taking in the too large robe, the still wet hair, the defensive body language. "Good morning," Margaret said, her tone neutral. "Mr. Carter asked me to check on you. May I come in?" It wasn't really a question. Claire stepped back, letting the older woman enter. Behind Margaret, a small figure darted forward, Liam holding a wrapped package and wearing the biggest smile. "I brought something for Noah," he announced, pushing past Margaret's attempt to catch him. Liam, Margaret said with that particular brand of long-suffering patience that came from decades of managing wealthy families. We discussed boundaries, but I wanted to see if the baby was okay. Liam looked up at Claire with those earnest eyes. Is he better? He looked really cold yesterday. Claire felt her defensive walls crack slightly. He's much better. Thank you for asking. I brought him a present. Liam held up the wrapped box. It's a stuffed elephant. I have one too, but mine's blue and this one's gray because I thought Noah might like gray better. Liam Carter, Margaret said firmly. Miss Miller may not be ready for visitors. It's fine, Claire heard herself say. Really? Margaret's eyebrow rose fractionally, but she nodded. Very well. Liam, you may say hello while I speak with Miss Miller about the arrangements. Arrangements? The word sent Claire's anxiety spiking again. Margaret moved to the sitting area and sat with the kind of grace that made Claire acutely aware of her own awkwardness. Mr. Carter has informed me that this suite is yours for the week. The room charges will be handled directly by him. There's no need for you to concern yourself with any billing matters. A week? Claire's voice came out strangled. I can't. That's too much. I just needed one night to get Noah warmed up. We'll be out of your hair this afternoon. And go where exactly? The blunt question hung in the air. That's none of your business, Claire said, trying to summon the dignity she'd somehow maintained even on that bench. You're quite right. It isn't. Margaret folded her hands in her lap. However, it is my business to ensure that Mr. Carter's generosity is not misplaced. So I'm going to ask you some direct questions, Miss Miller, and I would appreciate direct answers. Claire's jaw clenched. Here it comes. The judgment, the assumptions, the inevitable conclusion that she was a charity case at best, a con artist at worst. Fine, ask. How long have you been without housing? 2 months. And before that, a maternity home. Before that, a friend's couch until she got tired of me. Before that, Claire lifted her chin. Before that, I had a life. I was a person. I had plans and dreams and a future. What happened? Life happened. Bad choices. Worse luck. Claire shifted Noah to her other hip. Look, I appreciate what Mr. Carter did for us. I really do. But I don't need a lecture or an intervention or whatever this is. Noah and I have been managing. Managing? Margaret's tone was still neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Your child was hypothermic last night. That's not managing. That's surviving. Barely. The words hit like a slap. Claire felt her face flush with shame and anger in equal measure. I'm doing the best I can. I'm sure you are. And Margaret stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. My daughter was 23 when she died. Drug overdose. I'd spent years trying to help her, but she was too proud to accept it, too certain that accepting help meant admitting failure. Claire wasn't expecting that. I'm sorry. So am I. Every day I'm sorry. Margaret turned back to face her. I see that same pride in you, Miss Miller. That same stubborn certainty that you have to do everything alone. But pride doesn't keep babies warm. It doesn't feed them or clothe them or give them the life they deserve. So what are you saying? That I should just take handouts? That I should become some rich man's charity project? I'm saying you should accept the help being offered without reading ulterior motives into every gesture. Margaret's voice softened slightly. Mr. Carter is a good man. He's grieving, he's struggling, but he's good. What he did last night wasn't about pity or power. It was about recognizing another human being in need and having the means to help. And when the week's up, when he's done feeling good about himself and we're back on that bench, how does that help Noah? What if you use this week to figure out a better plan than a bench? Margaret countered. What if you let us help you access resources, find permanent housing, get back on your feet? There are no resources. I've tried. The waiting lists are months long. The requirements are impossible. The system is designed to keep people like me out. The system is designed poorly, Margaret agreed. But Mr. Carter has connections. He can make calls that you can't. Open doors that are closed to you. Would you rather let your pride stand in the way of that, or would you rather give your son a real chance? Claire looked down at Noah, who was gnawing contentedly on his fist, oblivious to the tension in the room. What does he want in return? She asked quietly. Nothing. Margaret's response was immediate and firm. And before you scoff at that, understand something. James Carter doesn't need anything from you. He has more money than he knows what to do with. What he needs is to feel like he's keeping a promise to his late wife. Let him do that." Liam appeared at Claire's elbow, having apparently grown bored with entertaining himself. "Are you gonna stay? Dad said you could stay if you wanted. We have lots of rooms." Claire looked from Liam to Margaret to the view of the city beyond the windows. She thought about that bench, about the cold, about the way Noah's lips had turned blue. "1 week," she heard herself say, "and then we figure out what's next." "That's all we're asking," Margaret said. There was another knock at the door. Margaret opened it to reveal a young woman pushing a cart loaded with breakfast, eggs, toast, fruit, coffee, and what looked like a full spread from a restaurant menu. "Breakfast," Margaret announced. "Mr. Carter insisted. He also instructed me to inform you that there are clothes being sent up from Nordstrom for you to choose from. Keep what fits, send back what doesn't. And before you argue about the expense, understand that this hotel spends more on fresh flowers each week than those clothes will cost." Claire wanted to argue. Every fiber of her being screamed that this was too much, that she was falling into a trap, that there had to be a catch. But Noah reached for the piece of toast on the cart, his little hand grasping, and she realized how desperately hungry she was, too. "Thank you," she whispered. Margaret nodded briskly. "I'll be back this evening to discuss next steps. In the meantime, eat, rest, take care of that baby." She paused at the door. "And Miss Miller, pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. Learn to accept help gracefully. It's harder than it looks, but it's worth it." She left, sweeping Liam along with her, despite his protests that he wanted to stay and play with Noah. Alone again, Claire sank onto the couch and pulled the cart close. She fed Noah first, giving him bits of banana that he gummed enthusiastically. Then she made herself a plate, eggs, toast, fruit, and ate like she hadn't eaten in weeks. Because she hadn't. Not really. Not like this. The clothes arrived an hour later, 3 bags from Nordstrom filled with practical things, jeans, sweaters, comfortable shoes. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed charity, just clothes that fit clean and new and hers. Claire tried on a pair of jeans and a soft gray sweater, staring at herself in the mirror. She looked normal. Not like a street person, not like someone who'd been sleeping on a bench. She looked like someone who deserved to be here. That thought terrified her more than anything else, because if she let herself believe it, if she let herself hope, then losing it all again would break her completely. But Noah was babbling happily in his crib, full and warm and safe, and Claire realized that maybe, just maybe, she could be brave enough to try, just for a week, just to see what happened. One day at a time. The invitation came that evening, delivered by Liam himself, with Margaret standing behind him, looking mildly exasperated. "Dad wants you to come see our house." Liam bounced on his toes. "It's in Connecticut. It has a big yard and a Christmas tree and everything." Claire, who'd spent the day in a state of surreal suspension, taking a nap, feeding Noah, trying not to count all the ways this could go wrong, looked at Margaret helplessly. "Mr. Carter thought you might appreciate some space outside the city," Margaret explained. "He has a guest house on the property that's currently vacant. More privacy, quieter for the baby. The offer is entirely optional, of course." "Connecticut," Claire repeated. That's really far from here. An hour's drive. Mr. Carter uses it as his primary residence. He keeps the penthouse here for work obligations, but prefers the estate for Liam's sake. More room to play, better schools nearby." An estate. Of course. Because the luxury hotel wasn't enough. The man also had an estate. "I don't think that's a good idea," Claire said carefully. "Noah and I should probably stick to the city. More resources here, more options if we need. If you need to run," Margaret finished bluntly. "You're planning your escape route before you've even accepted the invitation." Claire's cheeks flushed. "Can you blame me?" "No," Margaret said, surprising her. "But I can point out that you're letting fear make your decisions. The guest house has a full kitchen, a nursery, privacy. You can come and go as you please. The train station is 10 minutes away if you decide you want to leave." "Please come," Liam interjected, looking up at her with those devastatingly earnest eyes. "Noah needs to see the Christmas tree before we take it down, and Dad makes really good pancakes on Christmas mornings. Well, today's not Christmas morning anymore, but he could make them tomorrow morning. Do you like pancakes?" Claire looked at Noah, who was trying to grab Liam's finger and giggling when the boy let him catch it. Her son looked happier than she'd seen him in months. Fed, warm, playing with another child. Everything she wanted for him and couldn't provide. "Okay," she heard herself say, "but just for a few days, just until I figure out the next step." "Excellent," Margaret said with what might have been approval in her voice. "I'll have a car brought around in an hour. That should give you time to gather your things." "I don't have things," Claire said automatically, then looked around at the bags from Nordstrom, the supplies for Noah, the comfort she'd allowed herself to sink into for just one day. "I mean, I didn't have things. Now I have some things." Margaret's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Yes, now you have some things." The drive to Connecticut was surreal. James drove his own car this time, a different SUV, more worn in than the Range Rover, with Liam's car seat already installed and a collection of Hot Wheels cars scattered on the floor. "Sorry about the mess," James said as Claire climbed in. "Liam's idea of cleaning is shoving everything under the seats." "I heard that," Liam protested from the back. It felt normal. Too normal, like they were a family heading home after a long day, not a wealthy stranger driving a homeless woman and her baby to his Connecticut estate. Claire kept waiting for the catch, for James to explain what he really wanted, what this was really about. But he just drove, pointing out landmarks to Liam, asking if Claire wanted the heat turned up, if Noah needed anything. The estate, because what else could you call 40 acres of prime Connecticut real estate, took her breath away even though she tried to prepare herself. The main house was beautiful without being ostentatious, all warm stone and large windows that glowed with light against the twilight. But it was the guest house that made Claire's chest tighten. It was small, cottage-like, with a red front door and window boxes that probably held flowers in the spring. It looked like a home, a real home. The previous owners used it for their adult daughter, James explained as he carried Noah's new car seat to the door. "It's been empty since we bought the place, but Margaret had it cleaned and stocked." Inside was even better. A small living room with a fireplace, a kitchen with actual appliances, a bedroom with a real bed and, impossibly, a crib already set up. "Margaret's efficient," James said, catching her expression. "Probably more efficient than is strictly legal." Claire set Noah down in the crib, the second crib that had been prepared for her son in as many days, and felt something crack in her chest. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, not turning around. "And don't say it's because Liam saw me. Don't say it's about your wife's promise. Tell me the real reason." She heard James move behind her, then the creak of the rocking chair in the corner. "Sarah died on Christmas Eve," he said quietly. 2 years ago tomorrow. We'd been at the hospital for 3 days. Complications with the pregnancy, then the birth. They did an emergency C-section, but..." His voice caught. "Emma didn't make it. And Sarah, there was too much bleeding. They couldn't stop it." Claire turned to face him. He was staring at the crib, his expression distant. "I held them both," he continued. "My wife and my daughter. Held them while they got cold, and the only thing I could think was that I'd failed them, that I should have done something, been more, been better. That wasn't your fault. I know that. Intellectually, I know that." He rubbed his face. "But knowing something and feeling it are different things. For 2 years, I've been going through the motions, taking care of Liam, running the company, doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I've felt dead inside, like part of me died in that hospital room and never came back. So, this is about making yourself feel better," Claire said, trying to keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Maybe." James looked at her directly. "Is that so wrong? If helping you helps me deal with my grief, if it makes me feel like I'm keeping my promise to Sarah, if it gives my son a lesson in compassion, does it matter what my motives are if you and Noah are safe and warm?" Claire wanted to argue, wanted to find fault with his logic. But she was too tired, and he was too honest, and Noah was too comfortable in that crib. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to accept help. I don't know how to trust that there's not going to be a price I can't afford." "Then don't trust it yet," James said simply. "Just take it one day at a time. Wake up tomorrow in a warm bed. Feed your son in a real kitchen. Take a walk outside if you want. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or like this is wrong, leave. No questions, no judgment." Just like that? Just like that. They stared at each other across the small room. Two broken people trying to figure out if they could help each other heal. "I should go," James said finally. "Let you get settled, but Liam made me promise to invite you for breakfast tomorrow. Fair warning, he will cry if you say no." I wouldn't want to make him cry. 8 o'clock, the main house. Just follow the path through the trees. After he left, Claire stood in the silent guest house and tried to process everything. The cottage, the privacy, the simple kindness of leaving her alone to breathe. She fed Noah, changed him, tucked him into the crib with the stuffed gray elephant Liam had given him. The baby went down easy, exhausted from the stimulation of the day. Claire should have slept, but instead she walked through the cottage, touching things. The kitchen counters, the soft couch, the books on the shelves, the framed prints on the walls, evidence of a normal life. The kind of life she'd thought was lost to her forever. In the bedroom, she found a note on the dresser in Margaret's precise handwriting. "Miss Miller, the drawers are empty for your use. Fresh linens in the closet. Bathroom is stocked. Phone in the kitchen is a direct line to the main house if you need anything. Sleep well, MH." Sleep well, as if that was something Claire could just decide to do. But that night, in a real bed with clean sheets and a warm blanket, with her son breathing peacefully in the next room and locks on the doors and no one telling her to move along, Claire slept. And for the first time in months, she didn't dream about falling. Claire woke to winter sunlight streaming through actual curtains and the sound of Noah cooing to himself. For the second morning in a row, she experienced that moment of disorientation. Where am I? How did I get here? Is this real? But this time the answer felt less frightening. The guest house, Connecticut, James's property, safe. She got up, changed Noah, and stood in the small kitchen, trying to decide if she should actually go to breakfast or if that was pushing their luck too far. A knock at the door decided for her. Liam stood on the doorstep in pajamas and snow boots, his hair sticking up in 5 different directions. "Dad says breakfast is ready and you have to come because he made too much food and it'll go to waste." The words came out in a rush. "Also, Margaret says I'm not supposed to bother you this early, but I wanted to see if Noah was awake, and Dad said to ask if you like chocolate chip pancakes or blueberry pancakes because he has both." Claire couldn't help but smile. "Both sound good." "I knew it." Liam pumped his fist. "Dad said you'd say both. I said you'd pick chocolate chip. He knows everything." "Does he now?" "Well, not everything. He doesn't know how to beat the dragon level in my video game, but he knows most things." Claire bundled Noah into the new winter coat that had appeared in the closet, Margaret's doing no doubt, and followed Liam through the snow-covered path to the main house. The kitchen was enormous and warm, smelling like coffee and maple syrup and something cinnamon. James stood at the stove in jeans and a Harvard sweatshirt that had seen better days, flipping pancakes with surprising competence. "Morning," he said without turning around. "Coffee's fresh. Liam, go wash your hands. Claire, there's a high chair by the table if Noah wants to sit with us." It was so domestic, so normal, that Claire felt her throat tighten. This was what she'd imagined her life would be like once, before Derek left, before her parents disowned her, before everything fell apart. She settled Noah in the high chair and poured herself coffee, hyper-aware of how out of place she felt in this kitchen with its Viking range and farmhouse sink. "Relax," James said quietly, sliding a stack of pancakes onto a plate. "You look like you're about to bolt." "I'm fine." "You're terrified. There's a difference." He brought the plates to the table. Chocolate chip for Liam, blueberry for Claire, plain for himself with banana slices for Noah. "But I get it. This is a lot. Strange house, strange people probably feels like you're in someone else's life." "That's exactly what it feels like," Claire admitted. "Want to know a secret?" James sat down across from her. "This whole house feels like someone else's life to me, too. Sarah designed it, picked out every piece of furniture, every paint color. I walk through rooms and see her vision everywhere, but she's not here to enjoy it." Liam climbed into his chair, oblivious to the heavy conversation. "Dad, can Noah have some of my pancake? Not a big piece, just a baby piece." "He's still too little for solid food, buddy, but maybe in a few months." "Okay, I'll save him some for when he's bigger." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Claire tried to remember the last time she'd had a real breakfast at a real table. The shelter in Brooklyn maybe, 6 weeks ago. It felt like a lifetime. "I need to go into the city today," James said eventually. "Board meeting at the office. But you're welcome to stay here. Margaret can help with anything you need." "We should probably head back to the hotel," Claire said automatically. "Why?" Because we can't just move into your guest house. Why not? James met her eyes. I'm serious. It's sitting empty. You need a place to stay. Seems like a logical solution. Nothing about this is logical. Maybe not, but it's practical. And it works. Unless you'd rather go back to the city. Claire thought about the hotel suite, beautiful but sterile. About the city noise, the constant feeling of being watched and judged. Then she thought about Noah's peaceful sleep last night. About the quiet of the trees outside. About the kitchen where she could make her own meals. We can stay here. Really? The guest house is yours as long as you need it. I'll arrange for a car if you want to go into the city for anything. There's a grocery store 10 minutes away. Margaret can drive you, or you can take one of the cars if you want privacy. I don't know how to repay. Then don't, James interrupted. Just take care of Noah. Get back on your feet. Figure out what comes next. That's enough. Liam tugged on Claire's sleeve. After Dad leaves, can Noah and I watch Frozen? I think babies like Frozen. Everyone likes Frozen. Noah might be too little for movies, sweetie, Claire said gently. Then can you watch Frozen with me, and Noah can watch us watch Frozen? Despite everything, Claire laughed. A real laugh. The first one in so long. Yeah, okay. We can do that. After breakfast, James disappeared to get ready for his meeting. Margaret appeared. When did that woman sleep? And efficiently whisked Liam off to get dressed properly. Claire was left in the kitchen with Noah, staring at the remains of breakfast and trying to process the surreal turn her life had taken. The business section of the New York Times sat on the counter, and Claire's eyes caught on the headline, Carter, Investments, Under Pressure, Proxy Battle Looms. She picked it up, reading, James Carter, CEO of Carter Investments, faces mounting pressure from board member Victor Reeves to accept a buyout offer from Meridian Capital. Sources close to the situation suggest Reeves has been cultivating support among shareholders, arguing that Carter's personal struggles following his wife's death have left him unable to lead effectively. Claire's hands tightened on the paper. Personal struggles. They were using his grief as a weapon. That's been brewing for weeks, James said from the doorway, making her jump. He changed into a suit that probably cost more than Claire had made in her entire life. Victor's been after control of the company for years. Now he thinks he can use Sarah's death to paint me as unstable. That's disgusting. That's business. James poured himself more coffee. Don't worry about it. I've dealt with worse. But Claire saw the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. This wasn't just business to him. This was his legacy, his father's work, everything he'd built being used as ammunition. What happens if this Victor wins? James was quiet for a long moment. Then I lose the company my father spent his life building, and Victor Reeves gets to dismantle it piece by piece for profit. That can't happen. Probably won't. I still have majority shareholder support, but it's gonna be an ugly fight. He checked his watch. I need to go. Margaret's here if you need anything. And Claire, thank you for breakfast. It's been a long time since this house felt like a home in the morning. He left before she could respond, and Claire stood in the warm kitchen holding a newspaper article that revealed just how fragile James Carter's perfect life really was. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Maybe they were both just trying to survive their own kinds of storms. The thought was oddly comforting. The storm arrived 3 days later in the form of a phone call. Claire was in the guest house kitchen making lunch while Noah napped, when her phone, the one James had given her with a new number so she could be reached in emergencies, rang with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Claire Miller? The voice was male, smooth, with an edge of calculated charm. Who is this? Victor Reeves. I'm a board member at Carter Investments. I was hoping we could have a conversation. Claire's blood went cold. How did you get this number? I have resources, and I have concerns about James Carter, about his judgment, about you. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? So you're not currently living in the guest house on his Connecticut estate? You didn't spend Christmas Eve in his luxury hotel suite? You're not the homeless woman he picked up off the street like a stray puppy? The words hit like slaps. Claire gripped the counter, her knuckles white. What do you want? I want to help you understand what's really happening here. Victor's voice was so reasonable, so concerned. James Carter is a grieving man making poor decisions, taking in a stranger and her child, giving you access to his home, his family. These aren't the actions of a stable CE. He was helping me, helping my son. Or he's having a breakdown and using you as some kind of replacement for the family he lost. Have you considered that? Have you thought about what happens when he realizes you can't fill that void? Claire's throat tightened, because yes, she'd thought about exactly that. Late at night when she couldn't sleep, when the guest house felt too comfortable and Liam's laughter echoed too much like belonging, she'd wondered when the fantasy would end. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said quietly. "I'm sure you didn't, but you're caught in the middle of something bigger now. James is facing a vote of confidence from the board. His judgment is being questioned. And you, Miss Miller, are Exhibit A in the case against him. That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's reality. And I'm calling because I want to give you a chance to step away before this gets ugly, before the media gets wind of it, before photographs of you living in his guest house hit the front page of the Post." Claire felt sick. "You wouldn't." "I wouldn't want to, but if James forces my hand, if he insists on fighting this takeover attempt, then all options are on the table, including exposing his questionable personal decisions." Victor paused. "However, if you were to quietly distance yourself, return to the city, perhaps even speak publicly about how you are uncomfortable with his attention, well, that might change the narrative. You want me to betray him. I want you to think about your own interests. James Carter will be fine regardless of what happens. He has money, lawyers, resources. You're one story in the New York Post away from becoming a national punchline. The homeless woman who seduced a grieving billionaire. How do you think that plays?" "I didn't seduce anyone." "Doesn't matter. Optics matter. Perception matters. And right now, the perception is going to be that you took advantage of a vulnerable man. Unless you control the narrative first." Claire hung up without responding, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. For a long moment, she just stood there, breathing hard, trying not to panic. Then she called James. He picked up on the second ring, his voice distracted. "Claire, is everything okay? Is Noah—" "Victor Reeves called me." The words tumbled out. "He knows about the guest house. He's threatening to go to the press, to use me against you in this board fight. James, I'm so sorry. I should have left before it came to this." "Claire, slow down. Take a breath." She forced herself to breathe, in through her nose, out through her mouth, the way the counselor at the shelter had taught her during her panic attacks. "Tell me exactly what he said." She repeated the conversation as best she could remember it, hating how Victor's words had gotten under her skin, hating how easily he'd found her weaknesses. James was quiet for a long moment after she finished. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to stay exactly where you are. You're not going to run. You're not going to make any statements. You're not going to let that bastard manipulate you. But if he goes public, he's proving my point that he's willing to destroy people to get what he wants. The board won't love that. And Claire, you haven't done anything wrong. You're a mother who needed help. I'm a man who is able to provide it. That's the story. That's the truth. Let him try to make it into something ugly. He'll be the one who looks like a monster. You don't understand. People will judge me. They'll say I'm using you, that I don't care what people say. I care that you and Noah are safe. That's what matters. But your company is just a company. Companies can be rebuilt. But if I let Victor win by letting him scare you away, then what was the point of picking you up off that bench? What am I teaching Liam about standing by people when things get hard?" Claire felt tears burning in her eyes. "This isn't fair to you." "Life isn't fair, Claire. We both know that, but we get to choose how we respond." She could hear him moving, probably pacing his office. "I have a board meeting at 4. I'm going to address this head on. Put Victor on notice that if he goes after you or Noah, he's going to find out exactly how ruthless I can be. James, trust me, please. Just this once. Trust that I know what I'm doing." After they hung up, Claire sank onto the couch and pulled her knees to her chest. Noah was still sleeping peacefully in the next room, oblivious to the storm gathering around them. She thought about running, about packing up their few belongings and disappearing before she could do any more damage to the man who'd saved them. But then she thought about Liam's face when he played with Noah, about Margaret's grudging acceptance, about the way James looked at her sometimes like she was a person who mattered, not a problem to be solved. She thought about Sarah's promise, teach Liam to be kind, to see people. Maybe staying was its own kind of courage. Maybe letting James fight for her was the bravest thing she could do. Claire picked up her phone and sent James a text. "I trust you." 3 dots appeared immediately, then his response. "Thank you. That means more than you know." That night, after an emergency board meeting that James refused to discuss, Margaret arrived at the guest house with Liam in tow. "Mr. Carter is tied up with conference calls," she said briskly. "He asked if Liam could have dinner here tonight. The boy insisted, and frankly, I think you could both use the company." Claire looked at Liam, who was already making faces at Noah to get him to laugh. "We'd love that," she said. Margaret nodded approvingly. "I'll send food over. Liam, you're to mind Miss Miller and be in bed by 8. Understood?" "Yes, Margaret." After the older woman left, Liam turned to Claire with surprising seriousness. "Is Dad in trouble because of us?" Claire's heart clenched. "Why would you think that? I heard Margaret talking on the phone, something about bad men trying to take Dad's company because he helped you. I don't understand why helping people is bad." Claire knelt down to his level. "It's not bad, Liam. Your dad did exactly the right thing. Some people they don't like it when other people are kind. It makes them uncomfortable." "That's stupid." "Yeah," Claire agreed. "It really is. Dad's really smart, though. He'll fix it." Liam's confidence was absolute, the kind only 4-year-olds could have. He fixes everything. Claire wished she had that kind of faith, but as she watched Liam play with Noah, making her son giggle and squeal with delight, she realized something. Whatever happened with the board, whatever Victor Reeves threw at them, this, right here, was worth fighting for. Not just for her and Noah, but for Liam too, for the lesson he was learning about standing by people even when it got hard. Maybe that's what Sarah had meant all along. New Year's Eve arrived with snow falling soft and steady over Connecticut. Claire had been living in the guest house for 6 days, and with each morning she woke up half expecting it all to disappear. But the cottage remained solid, warm, real. Noah was thriving. He'd gained weight. His cheeks were pink. He laughed easily now. The transformation was almost painful to see because it highlighted how close she'd come to losing him. The knock at her door came at noon. James, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, holding a garment bag. "I need a favor," he said without preamble. "Okay." "The New Year's Eve gala. It's tonight in the city. Carter Investments hosts it every year. Investors, board members, press. I usually dread it, but this year I need to show up strong. Show Victor and his allies that I'm not shaken by their games." Claire's stomach tightened. "What does this have to do with me?" "I want you there, with me, as my guest." "James, that's insane. I don't belong at something like that." "Neither do half the people who'll be there, but that doesn't stop them from showing up." He held up the garment bag. "Margaret picked this out. It's not charity, it's armor. And I'm not asking you to be arm candy or to play pretend. I'm asking you to stand with me while I make it clear that I'm not ashamed of helping you. I'm not sorry about it, and anyone who has a problem with it can deal with me directly. You want to use me to send a message to Victor. I want to show the board that I made a choice based on compassion, and I stand by it. That I'm not hiding you or apologizing for you. That you're not some scandal to be managed. You're a person I chose to help because it was the right thing to do." Claire sank onto the couch, her mind racing. If I show up to this gala, it's going to make me a target. Every camera, every reporter, they're going to want to know who I am, where I came from." "I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. But Claire, they're going to find out anyway. Victor made sure of that. At least this way, you control the narrative. You walk in on your own terms, not as someone caught in a scandal, but as someone with dignity and grace." "I don't have dignity and grace. I was living on a bench a week ago. And now you're not. That's called survival. That's called strength." James set the garment bag on the chair. "I'm not going to force you. If you say no, I'll respect that. But I think you're stronger than you believe you are. And I think showing up tonight might remind you of that." After he left, Claire stared at the garment bag for a long time. Finally, she unzipped it. The dress inside was beautiful, deep emerald green, simple but elegant, with long sleeves and a modest neckline. Nothing showy, nothing that screamed poor girl dressed up by rich man. Just a dress that any confident woman might wear to a formal event. Margaret appeared an hour later with a makeup artist and a calm, no-nonsense energy. "We're not making you into someone you're not," Margaret said firmly as the artist worked. We're just polishing what's already there. I look like a mess. You look like someone who's been through hell and survived. Now we're going to make sure everyone else sees the survivor, not the hell." By 6 o'clock, Claire stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized herself. The dress fit perfectly. Her hair, which Margaret had insisted they keep simple, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. The makeup was light but effective, covering the worst of the exhaustion, highlighting features Claire had forgotten she had. She looked almost pretty, almost like someone who belonged. "Noah's staying here with me tonight," Margaret said, adjusting Claire's collar. "I've raised 3 children. I know what I'm doing. I've never left him for this long." "Then it's time you practiced." "He'll be fine. You'll be fine. And Miss Miller?" Margaret met her eyes in the mirror. "Hold your head high tonight. You have nothing to be ashamed of." The car ride into the city felt eternal. James sat beside her in his tuxedo, checking his phone occasionally, but mostly just quiet. "You okay?" he asked as they approached the city. "Terrified." "Good. That means you understand what's at stake. But Claire, you're not alone in this. I'm with you the whole night." The gala was being held at the Archer naturally. Claire recognized the entrance even through her nervousness. But now, instead of arriving in dirty clothes carrying a half-frozen baby, she was stepping out of a town car in an evening gown. The transformation should have felt empowering. Instead, it felt like wearing a costume. Cameras flashed as they entered. James's hand was steady on her back, guiding her through the lobby toward the ballroom. "James Carter!" A reporter shoved a microphone forward. "Can you comment on rumors about your relationship with a homeless woman?" Claire froze, but James didn't miss a beat. "I can comment on the fact that our society has failed when helping someone in need becomes newsworthy. Next question." They kept walking. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers cast golden light over hundreds of guests in formal wear. Waiters circulated with champagne. A string quartet played in the corner. Claire felt every eye turn toward them. "They're staring," she whispered. "Let them," James replied. "You look beautiful. Hold your head up." He introduced her to what felt like 100 people. Investors, board members, their spouses. Some were polite, some curious, some openly skeptical. Claire shook hands, smiled, and tried to project confidence she didn't feel. Then Victor Reeves appeared. He was younger than Claire expected, mid-40s, good-looking in a shark-like way, with expensive teeth and eyes that calculated the value of everything they saw. "James, Miss Miller." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "What an interesting choice for tonight." "Is it?" James's voice was mild, but his posture was dangerous. "I thought bringing a friend to a party was pretty standard." "A friend? How touching." Victor turned to Claire. "Are you enjoying the attention, Miss Miller? All these cameras, all this interest in your story?" "I'm not here for attention," Claire said, forcing her voice steady. "I'm here because James invited me." "And how much did that invitation cost? In favors? In obligation? Curious minds want to know." "That's enough." James's voice cut like a blade. "You want to come at me, Victor? Do it. But leave her alone." "Oh, I'm just making conversation. Though I have to wonder, does the board know about your new project? Are they comfortable with your judgment these days?" "The board voted 2 days ago, 7-5 in my favor. Your little coup failed, Victor. We're done here." Victor's smile tightened. "For now. But James, when this all falls apart, and it will, remember that I tried to warn you." He walked away, and Claire felt her knees go weak. "I need air," she whispered. James guided her through the crowd to a balcony overlooking the city. The cold hit her face like a blessing, clearing the fog of panic. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have come. I'm making everything worse." "You're not making anything worse. Victor's desperate, which means I'm winning." James leaned against the railing. "The board voted before the gala. That's what I couldn't tell you yesterday. I didn't want to jinx it. But we won, Claire. He tried to force me out, tried to use you as evidence of my poor judgment, and the board said no." "They sided with you?" "They sided with doing the right thing. Turns out most people don't actually want to work for a sociopath." He turned to face her. "But there's more. I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it." Claire's heart started pounding. "This, you being here, Noah, in our lives, the way Liam talks about you two, it's changed things for us, for me. I wake up in the morning and the house doesn't feel empty anymore. Liam laughs again, really laughs. And he paused, choosing words carefully. I feel like maybe I'm allowed to move forward, like maybe Sarah would want me to. James, let me finish. I'm not expecting anything from you. I'm not asking you to feel anything. But I need you to know that what started as helping someone in need has become more. You matter to me. Noah matters to me, and I don't want you to leave when the week is up. The week was up 3 days ago, Claire pointed out, her voice shaky. I know, but you're still here because I don't have anywhere else to go. Is that the only reason? Claire looked out at the city, at the millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there was the bench where this all started, the place where she'd been certain her life was over. I don't know what I feel, she admitted. Everything's happened so fast. A week ago, I was dying on a bench. Now I'm at a New Year's Eve gala wearing a designer dress, and my son is healthy and happy, and I'm terrified of how much I want this to be real. It is real. For now. But what happens when... No. James cut her off gently. No what-ifs. No planning for the worst-case scenario. Just be here, now, with me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Claire's breath caught. This was my grandmother's, James said, opening the box to reveal a sapphire ring, simple and stunning. She gave it to my father, who gave it to me. It's been sitting in a safe for 30 years because Sarah didn't want to wear it. She had her own family jewelry, but I think... He met Claire's eyes. I think it's time it had a purpose again. James, we've known each other for 6 days. I know, which is insane. And if you say no, I completely understand. But Claire, I also know what it feels like to waste time, to wait for the perfect moment. I lost Sarah because we thought we had more time and we didn't. I don't want to make that mistake again. You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to consider a future where you don't have to be afraid anymore, where Noah grows up with a father figure and Liam has a mother figure and we build something new out of all our broken pieces. Tears were streaming down Claire's face now. This is crazy. Completely crazy, James agreed, but maybe crazy is what we both need. Claire looked at the ring, then at James, then out at the city one more time. She thought about that bench, about the cold, about the moment when Liam's small hand had held hers, and she'd realized that maybe, just maybe, there were still kind people in the world. Ask me properly, she heard herself say. James smiled, that real smile she'd seen so rarely, the one that made him look 10 years younger. He got down on one knee right there on the balcony, holding up his grandmother's ring. Claire Miller, will you marry me? Will you let me be Noah's father and give Liam a mother and build a family out of this impossible situation we've found ourselves in? Yes, she whispered. God help me, yes. The ring slid onto her finger like it had been waiting there all along. James stood and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like hope and possibility and second chances. Inside the ballroom, someone started counting down to midnight. 10. 9. 8. Claire laughed against James's mouth, dizzy with the impossibility of it all. 7. 6. 5. Through the glass doors, she could see the gala guests gathering, champagne in hand. 4. 3. 2. Happy New Year, Claire, James murmured. 1. Happy New Year, she replied. And as fireworks exploded over the city, as the crowd inside cheered and kissed and celebrated, Claire Miller, former homeless mother, former lost cause, stood on a balcony with a sapphire ring on her finger and believed, finally, in happy endings. 6 months later, summer. Claire stood in the cottage kitchen, no longer the guest house, but officially home. Watching Noah crawl across the living room floor, Liam lay beside him drawing elaborate maps of imaginary kingdoms. Mom, Liam called without looking up. Can Noah be in charge of dragons? Claire's heart still stuttered every time he called her that. I think Noah would be an excellent dragon master, she replied. The wedding had been small. Just Margaret, Liam, Noah, and a judge. No press, no spectacle. 2 people promising to try their best with each other. James had transferred the cottage deed to Claire's name alone, insisting she needed something completely hers. She'd cried for an hour. The guest room had become her studio. She painted in the mornings while Noah napped. Real paintings, real supplies, real canvases. A gallery owner in Greenwich Village had offered her a show in 2 months. James burst through the door, barely contained excitement on his face. "It's approved," he said without preamble. "The board approved the funding. The bench project is officially launching." "James," Claire set down her plate. "Really? Really? 5 cities to start: New York, LA, Chicago, Boston, Seattle. Emergency housing, financial assistance, job training, child care support. Everything you wished had existed." He pulled up the plans on his laptop. Partnerships with shelters, a 24-hour hotline, social workers, transportation vouchers, medical care coordination. Everything Claire had needed and couldn't find, now being built for others. "There's one more thing." James showed her a photo of a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, the flagship location. What made Claire's breath catch was the mural on the front, a stone bench painted in realistic detail, surrounded by dozens of handprints in different colors, all reaching toward it. Above it, "For every story that deserves a second beginning." "I thought we could do the ribbon cutting together," James said. "Show people that second chances work." Claire kissed him, cutting off the words. "It's perfect." 3 months later, Claire stood before her first solo exhibition at the Walker Gallery. The collection was called From the Bench, 12 paintings inspired by that night and everything that followed. The centerpiece showed the stone bench at night, harsh and cold, but covered in ghostly handprints, impressions left by everyone who'd ever sat there, suffered there, hoped there. Around it hung smaller pieces: Noah sleeping in warm light, Liam's red scarf, James's profile, grief and hope mixed together, the cottage windows glowing golden. 4 hands joined in an unbroken circle. The opening was crowded. Press had come, drawn by the story. But Claire watched people respond to the work itself, not just the narrative. "They're beautiful," Margaret said, appearing at her elbow. "Haunting, but hopeful." "That's how it felt," Claire said, "being on that bench, haunted by everything I'd lost, but somehow still hoping. And now I'm terrified this is all a dream." "That's not how life works, dear. You don't go backwards. You only move forward." Margaret's hand briefly touched Claire's shoulder. "You've earned this. Remember that." The show sold out. Every painting purchased by collectors who wanted to own a piece of the story that had captivated the city. The money went into a trust for Noah's future, with a portion donated to the Bench Project. Christmas Eve, 1 year after the bench, James suggested a walk after dinner. They drove into the city, Christmas lights blazing everywhere, streets full of people rushing home to warmth and safety. Claire knew where they were going before they turned the final corner. The bus stop, the bench. It looked exactly the same. Cold gray stone, harsh streetlight, no shelter from the wind, but tonight someone had placed a small plaque on the back. "Here is where second chances begin." Claire felt tears sting her eyes. "The city approved it last week," James said quietly. "They're doing this at every major bus stop in Manhattan. Little reminders that people see each other." Liam pulled a package from his coat, carefully wrapped, bow slightly crooked. "We got something for the bench," he announced. "For anyone who needs it tonight." Inside were 2 red scarves with a note. "If you're cold, take one. If you're warm, leave one. We're all in this together." They left the package weighted down with a stone. As they turned to leave, Claire looked back. A woman was approaching the bench, young, thin, carrying everything she owned. She saw the package, read the note, and her face crumpled with relief and disbelief. Claire started forward, but James caught her hand. "Let someone else help her," he said gently. "That's the point. Starting a chain." The woman wrapped one scarf around herself and tucked the other back for the next person. The chain was starting. 5 years after the bench, Noah started preschool, Liam started 3rd grade, and announced he wanted to be a helper when he grew up. The Bench Project operated in 25 cities now, helping over 15,000 families. Claire's 3rd book of paintings hit the New York Times bestseller list. They took vacations: Disney World, the Grand Canyon, Cape Cod. But every Christmas Eve, they returned to that bench. They'd bring scarves, blankets, hot chocolate, gift cards, leave everything in weatherproof containers with notes. "You're not alone. Help is here." And every year, by Christmas Day, everything was gone, used by people who needed it. Evidence that the chain of kindness continued to grow. 15 years after the bench, Christmas Eve. The tradition continued, but this year, a documentary crew followed them, filming a special about the Bench Project's impact. "Tell us about that first night," the interviewer asked Claire. Claire looked at the bench, still there, Still gray stone, but now a landmark, a symbol. "I was dying," she said simply. Not dramatically, but slowly. Every day a little colder, a little more hopeless. Noah was dying too. And I'd accepted that this was how our story ended. On this bench, in the cold, forgotten. What changed? Claire looked at James. At Liam, now 20 and towering over her. At 15-year-old Noah filming on his phone. "A 4-year-old boy saw me," she said. "Really saw me. Not as a problem or a statistic, but as a person who needed help. And his father was brave enough to listen." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if they'd walked past?" "Every day," Claire admitted. "Every single day I think about how close we came to a different ending. And it makes me grateful, not just for being saved, but for learning that kindness isn't weakness. That seeing people, really seeing them, is maybe the most important thing any of us can do." The interview wrapped. The crew packed up, leaving the family alone. Liam, studying social policy at Harvard, placed the packages with practiced efficiency. Noah added a new element, a QR code linking to mental health resources and emergency services. "Tech upgrade," he explained. James pulled Claire close against the cold. "You okay?" "More than okay. Happy. Actually happy. Who would have thought?" "A 4-year-old boy," Claire said, smiling. "That's who." They stood there, 4 people who'd become a family through impossible circumstances, looking at a bench that represented both their worst moment and their best beginning. "Ready to go home?" James asked. Claire looked one more time at the bench, at the packages, at the plaque, reminding people that second chances exist. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go home." As they walked away, a woman approached the bench, young, exhausted, carrying a baby wrapped in a thin blanket. She saw the packages, read the note, and for the first time in days, hope flickered across her face. The chain continued, kindness begetting kindness, one person helping another, second chances rippling outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Life was still hard. The system was still broken. There were still too many people on too many benches on too many cold nights. But there was also this. A family who'd found each other in darkness. A project that had helped thousands. A reminder that one act of compassion could change everything. Claire Miller, former homeless mother, survivor, artist, wife, mother, had learned the most important lesson of all, that being seen, really seen, by another human being might just be the most powerful force in the world. And sometimes all it takes is one person stopping to help, one person choosing kindness over comfort, one person believing that everyone deserves a second beginning. Everything else flows from there.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.